Meanwhile, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken announcing the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces agreed to a 72-hour ceasefire starting at midnight. The U.S. is now helping to create a committee to oversee negotiations for a permanent peace deal in Sudan. Meanwhile, the White House telling the up to 16,000 private U.S. citizens in Sudan yesterday to shelter in place, saying that it's too dangerous for a government-coordinated evacuation. Watch this.
It is not standard practice for the United States to send in the U.S. military into war zones to extract all American citizens. We didn't do it in Libya, we didn't do it in Syria, we didn't do it in Yemen, and no, we didn't do it in Ukraine. Afghanistan was a unique case involving the end of a 20-year war that the United States was centrally involved in. There should not be a broad expectation of a massive military operation to seize an airport or otherwise evacuate people from a country.
Joining me right now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane is here. General, good to see you. Thanks so much for being with me.
Yeah, great being here, Maria.
General, you just heard Jake Sullivan. What happened to leave no Americans behind? What's your take on the Sudan situation?
Well, first of all, let's give the administration some credit for taking the lead here and arranging this ceasefire, and hopefully this one sticks. Previous ceasefires, these two warring generals have usually broken down. But that would give countries ample opportunity to conduct some evacuations. Listen, we don't really know how many American citizens are in Sudan. I mean, the numbers are from 14,000 to 20,000. The overwhelming majority of them live there permanently. Yes, they're dual citizens, but this is where they live, this is where they work, this is where the kids go to school, and they don't want to leave. And I think if they leave, it'll be just temporarily, drive across the border if violence comes to their town, village, or neighborhood. But there are Americans, largely who are workers, serving agencies inside of Sudan who do want to leave. And I do think we should make arrangements to get those people out of there. I thought we could have done that, actually. There's just a few dozen of them, from what I understand, and a number of them were sequestered in a hotel in Khartoum. I thought we would have taken them out of there, as well as taking our government and diplomatic employees out, certainly. And that was a remarkable operation that the military conducted, and full credit for doing a 17-hour operation like that, one of our longest evacuations we've ever conducted in our history. But yes, I think there's more we can do here. And, you know, Maria, I think what's happening in the rearview mirror is Kabul and what took place there, and the administration doesn't want any repeat of that, any damage that would come as a result of a scene that could turn chaotic. But it would never be anything like that. We're not talking about thousands of people, likely talking about maybe less than 100, or possibly a little bit more than that. But those tens of thousands of people are talking about, they want to stay there. This is their home.
Okay. General, we've been talking a lot about the dominance or increasing influence from China throughout Africa, and I'm wondering your thoughts on the influence of China and Russia in this region. Here's Gordon Chang with me on Sunday. Watch this.
We have to ask that question because the Russian mercenaries, the Wagner Group, have been destabilizing Sudan. Now, Putin doesn't have the money to do that. He's got his hands full with Ukraine. And so the question is, who is paying for these Wagner mercenaries? We know that China and Russia cooperate throughout Africa and throughout elsewhere. So we need to start asking that question. Where is this money coming from? And until we start asking that question, we're not going to get to a solution in North Africa.
General, what do you think? Is there a communist China element here?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When all the African leaders came here to a convention in Washington, D.C. A couple of months ago, I happened to be at a dinner with 6 of these presidents, and every single one of them indicated that China was involved in their country, and they would rather sit at the table with America. And that's one of the reasons they were here, talking to American leadership, saying, listen, you have got to get involved in Africa. Now, we have a lot on our plate, Maria, whether Republicans or Democrats running this country, the national security challenges we are facing are on a scale we haven't seen, going all the way back to the collapse of the Soviet Union, possibly the end of World War II. And certainly our focus is on China. Our focus is on the war that's taking place in Europe and the fact that Iran is getting closer to a nuclear weapon in addition to radical Islam. But what we're talking about in Africa is not military. We're talking about economic, largely, and diplomatic. And yes, we've got to pay more attention to this continent. And look at China and Russia. What do they want here? They want influence and control. They want the huge resources that are in Africa. And China already has extracted a significant amount of minerals and other resources as well. China is in a full court play here. Russia using the Wagner Group and others militarily to get control. China is using the economic weapon to gain influence and control. And we've got to catch up here. They're ahead of us.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because you're talking about all of this on our plate, a changed backdrop in terms of adversaries on the march. And that is the reason that the global defense spending boom is happening. There's global military spending rising across the board, except in the United States. For 8 consecutive years in 2022, an all-time high in global military spending to more than $2 trillion. Look at these numbers. World military expenses up 3.7% in real terms in 2022. From Europe, 13%. Lithuania up 27%. Poland up 11%. You've got in the Pacific, Japan increasing spending 5.9%. That's 1.1% of GDP. It's all in this Wall Street Journal editorial this morning. A new op-ed saying the truth is that the U.S. defense spending is flat at 3% of the economy, and it is failing to keep pace with the world's threats. That's 3% compared to Finland's military spending, up 36%, Lithuania up 27%, Japan up 5.9%. General, you were the first to point this out years ago, telling me that China's Navy is bigger than ours, that we are outmanned and outgunned. What's going on with military spending in the United States? Are we not getting what's going on around us?
Well, put frankly and simply, we're not keeping pace with the threats that are out there in terms of our own defense spending. And the facts speak for themselves. Yeah, we're at 3%. We're not even accounting for inflation, which is at least 5% and possibly 6%. And that's the reality of it. So we're dealing with actually a decline in defense spending. What is happening? The world has become more dangerous. I think the American people clearly understand that. They know full well that China, some 70% of the American people believe that China is a major threat to our security. And you're right. This has been going on for a number of years. And it's China and Russia who are driving the increase in defense spending. It started with Russia and Ukraine, Crimea and eastern Ukraine, and China's aggression, South China Sea, Taiwan, etc. So the countries in the Indo-Pacific region, as you point out, are increasing their defense spending because of the China threat. Europe is up overall 13% because of the Russian threat. And the United States, while we have given $20 billion about in military spending to Ukraine in last year, you're right. We are 3% is where we're at. And it's not enough to keep pace.
Very concerning.
For our audience to understand, during the Reagan years, during the Cold War, we averaged about 6% of GDP. We're now at 3% of GDP. And it's just not going to be sufficient to deal with these threats.
Well, this is very concerning. We're going to keep a spotlight on it, General. Thanks very much for educating our viewers the way you have over the years. We so appreciate it. Good to see you, sir.
Yeah,
General
great talking to you, Maria.
Keane.